So, shall we begin?
Yeah.
Uh, welcome to everyone. I, Randhir Gautam, on behalf of School of Humanities and Social Sciences of Raffles University, uh, kindly unmute, kindly mute your mic. Anu Gaur, Anu, this is the problem of, okay. uh, okay. On behalf of School of Humanities and Social Sciences of Raffles University and RAISE Foundation, I welcome everyone. It is a privilege to have webinar on the very topic, Swami Vivekananda and Young India. As you know, tomorrow is National Youth Day, and we are going to celebrate 158th birthday of Swami Vivekananda. So it's better to understand his idea, his philosophy, his social thought. And today's we have a great speaker on this very topic. He is going to deliver a lecture. Is Dr. Amit Kumar Sharma. Sir has always been a source of inspiration for us. He is a well-known sociologist. He was trained at Patna University, Delhi School of Economics, and Jawaharlal Nehru University. Currently, he teaches sociology in JNU. Throughout a busy professional career, he has functioned as sociologist, Indologist, writer, and increasingly as philosopher of Indic civilization. His versatility in all these areas has resulted in well over more than 200 articles in English and Hindi. He has always uh, been a source of inspiration for young sociologists as well. He has also written 6 books dealing with sociology, Indian society, culture, and Gandhian social thought. As an academic personality, his main area of concern are, as Sir also said, uh, cinema and culture in India, sociology of religion, sociology of civilization, sociological theories, and Indology. He has supervised many PhD and MPhil students. In addition to his teaching and professional activities, he has been active in public sphere about politics in India, Gandhian philosophy, Hindi cinema, and emerging global order. Thank you so much, sir, for coming and bestowing us with your presence. Before the talk of sir, let me try to give a brief context of his talk. As you know, Swami Vivekananda is very difficult to explain in few words, in few minutes, because he's a multiple. Uh, uh, he has very multiple personality traits. He has multifaceted personality, I would say. Uh, Vivekananda was a man with a mission. For Indian youth, he is one of the great icons. Uh, as you know, youth is a time of unachieved ambitions, unfulfilled desire. Young men seek for direction and guidance. They are full of energy, discontent, and idealism, but not certain about the aims to which these explosive forces are to be directed. Young men are uh, the seeker of good thoughts, philosophies for that matter. I found, among the youth, there is a lack of understanding or misunderstanding about uh, 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 the Swami Vivekananda intellectual legacy. And this lecture is so significant because Sir is going to make us understand about Swami Vivekananda work critically and scientifically. We know Swamiji is considered a key figure in the introduction of Hindu philosophy of Vedanta and yoga to Western world. The incident, the famous incident that took place in the 1893 World's Parliament of Religion, held at Chicago, USA. His address remains a proud movement of Indian history we cherish it greatly, whose contribution to intercultural and interfaith dialogue remains unsup- unsup- uh, unsurpassed, making disciples in many countries. Some of them was famously Sister Nobility, choose to live and die in India of lifting and empowerment of Indians, and then helping to build Ramakrishna Mission, which is a major organization of social work, and now enjoys a global presence. Swami Ji viewed social reform before Indian freedom, although he became the inspiration of national struggle. His quest of a struggle to unite East and West needed attention. Swamiji engaged with famous philosophers of their time like Kant, Hegel, Paul Dawson, Max Muller. Even for Max Muller, Vivekananda had high administration respect, regard, because of the development of Indology. Swamiji was inspired by many Indian social reformers also. Nehru called him fearless philosopher. Swamiji also inspired Tesla, who was one of the great and mysterious scientists. Some thinker argues Swami Vivekananda philosophy acts like a bridge between past and present. Swamiji had deep respect for religion, deep respect for region, liberty of thought and action. He synthesizes Western progress and Indian spiritualism. He always emphasizes on positive pedagogy. He said, it is our own mental attitude which makes the world what it is for us. He states, weakness is death and strength is life. Concentration of mind is a way to achieve success. He advocates the significance of meditation for that matter. According to Swami Vivekananda, the country needed a religious renaissance for the regeneration of India in general and Hindu society in particular. Swamiji thought needs more intellectual engagement, I think, because it has trans-historical conceptual significance, particularly in the context of polarity, polarity of East and West, or Oriental philosophy and Occidental philosophy is expressed in various ways in Vivekananda work. Somewhere he said, voice of West is voice of politics and voice of East is voice of religion. And we need a kind of synthesis of both voices for the betterment of world. The charismatic incident took place when Swamiji met Ramkrishna Paramhans in November 1889. Paramhans' teaching had long-lasting impact on Swamiji's personality. I read one of the incident where Swamiji discussed with one of his friends whether Hindu god of Brahmin was same as Hegel's absolute spirit. This gives us illustration that he was deeply engaged with philosophizing reality and understanding the truth. And as you know, with the time of, with the advent of enlightenment, at the beginning of 19th century, man tried to find God through reason. and dualism was the result, and what little was left of God by the process was destroyed by advent of Darwinism. And Swami Vivekananda criticized social Darwinism and also criticized Herbert Spencer ideas of evolution. And he says when society has reached an equilibrium, you know, in which there is no competition and subsequently there is no conflict. For Swami Vivekananda, God is necessary because God is freedom. And but there is some critical understanding when we see the work of Swami Vivekananda, and when he said the spread of Sanskrit language, and he in that regard he instructed non-Brahmins to be given Gayatri mantra and spread the Sanskrit language. Whether these techniques, through these techniques, we can end the culture of birth-based discrimination or not is a matter of question. But Swamiji understanding of culture of tolerance is significant for that matter. When we put sociological insight, when you put perspective of Giddens, in the context of uncertainty and problem of risk, religion is an aspect of repair work. In that context, how we can understand the work of Swami Vivekananda, because in today's time, risk has become the hallmark of modern civilization, and believe in a time of crisis where we need altruistic commitment to collective aims, to society. We need development of sentiments of social belongingness without the attitude of othering, right? So in that context, we need to engage with Swami Vivekananda philosophies and his contribution. And in that context, the contribution of Vivekananda has become more relevant than it was before. Now I would like to invite Professor Amit Kumar Sharma sir to give more insight and to give more critical insight on Swami Vivekananda work, so that we can understand his work more scientifically and critically. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Gandhi. After your introduction, you should not mind. It is difficult to speak about this topic because primarily I am a mystic. I follow a particular type of sadhana which is rooted in Buddhism. I think your introduction is much more influenced by the Western philosophers' reading of Vivekananda. I will not say it is wrong, but I will say it is Western understanding. This is external understanding of Swami Vivekananda. Now, I have something which is written about it. I wrote a book in Hindi in 2004. It is called Hind Swaraj Ki Prasangikta. This is an analysis or comparative analysis of Mahatma Gandhi's key text, Hind Swaraj, and there I compare Mahatma Gandhi with Swami Vivekananda. Then I have a very long article, 64-page article on Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar, where again I compare Baba Saheb with Swami Vivekananda. But I'm not going to repeat what I have already written in many languages, not only Hindi or English, but I also write in Urdu, I also write in Pali, and I also write in 16 European languages. But today I will give a very simple introduction from Indic point of view, from the point of view of Bengali Bhadralok, as well as the Bengali common people, how they understood the legacy of Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans. And as a student of Ramakrishna Paramhans, whether Swami Vivekananda elaborates the same point, or in the process of elaboration and in elucidation, he also interpolates some of the Western categories in the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. Now, you may say that I am using Vivekananda in plural sense. Yes, there are two Vivekananda. One, when he was not Swami Vivekananda, when he was just simple Narendranath Dutt. We must differentiate between Narendranath Dutt and Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda is a name which Vivekananda gave to himself on the advice of Raja Khetri. But the person who came in contact with Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans, his name was Gadadhar Chattopadhyay, and he was born on 18th February 1836. Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans died on 16th August 1886. Now, I will not say I am an expert on Swami Vivekananda, but yes, I am a very devout student of Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans. Now, what I am trying to hint at is that Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans spoke only Bangla, and Swami Vivekananda wrote primarily in English language. Some of these writings are in the form of lectures. Therefore, the politics of translation becomes very important. Suppose Swamiji, that is Swami Vivekananda, had heard your introduction, he would have committed suicide. You know why? Because you are putting words which he never spoke. Therefore, what? You should not mind, you are a young person. There are three things which all of you should understand. Religion has nothing to do with dharma. Religion is a puja paddhati. It is a way of worship. It is a particular type of liturgy, forms of belief and practices. Whereas for Swami Vivekananda, as well as from Swami Ramakrishna Paramhansa, dharma is a cosmic order. What is the difference between the two? The difference is that in religion, you include only human beings and God. Therefore, Emile Durkheim defines religion as a moral community of human beings who are joined together around a sacred persona or totem or whatever. Now, what is dharma? Dharma for Swami Vivekananda as well as for Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans is the same thing which is called by the Buddha Dhamma, or which is called by the Vedic rishis Rita. Dhamma is Pali, Rita is Sanskrit, meaning is the same. Cosmic order, which includes man, animals, nature, machines, and divinity. Therefore, the Western concept of religion is humanistic. Now, the majority of English educated Indians think that humanism is something which is very good. But they do not know the literal or symbolic meaning of humanism. What is the meaning of humanism? Man is the measure of everything else, including divinity, God or goddesses. Now, Swami Vivekananda never agreed with this Western concept of religion. Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans never believed that religion is only a moral community of human beings, and primarily white human beings. Because our colonial masters said that they are civilized and they have not colonized us. Rather, they have come to non-European countries on a civilizing mission, because the non-Europeans are savages and barbarians. Swamiji definitely refuted this perspective when, in the Chicago address, he said, brothers and sisters. These two words, brothers and sisters, are very simple in Indian context. But when you are speaking it in Chicago as a non-white person, for majority of people, it was alarming and surprising. Why surprising? Because Europeans never considered anybody who is not related by blood as brothers and sisters. What Swamiji was trying to say? He was trying to articulate the Indic tradition, where the adopted son or daughter is as important as the biological son or daughter. For example, Lord Hanuman is not the biological child of Lord Ram and Goddess Sita. But have you seen any temple anywhere in the world where Ram and Sita are worshipped with love and kush? No. Love and kush are biological children of Ram and Sita, but they are not worshipped by the Hindus, so far as I know, anywhere in the world. Who is worshipped? Hanuman is worshipped. Who is Hanuman? He is adopted child of Ram and Sita. In the same way, in North India at least, there are very few temples devoted to Lord Kartikeya. The majority of North Indians worship Lord Shiva, Goddess Parvati, and their adopted child Ganpati or Ganesh. When Swamiji is saying brothers and sisters, he is following the same tradition of Ram and Sita and Shiva and Parvati. The question is why? And no scholar of Vivekananda had asked this question. He is asking this question because he is refuting doctrine of lapse of the colonial rulers of India, who denied Indians the right to adopt. He is referring to Rani of Jhansi, that the adopted child of Rani Jhansi has similar rights as the biological children. the English people have no right to pervert our concept of adoption. Therefore, those who think that Swamiji never criticized the British rule are fools, ignorant, savages. By referring to brothers and sisters, he is refuting doctrine of lapse. In the same way, when he is saying that I do not differentiate between Indians and Americans, Chinese and Russians, Japanese and Germans, what he is trying to articulate, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Therefore, Swami Vivekananda represents both, not only Indian modernity, but also Indian tradition. But Indian tradition is not equal to the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda is not the sole propagator of Indic tradition. Why? Because in the Upanishads it is said, neti neti. Reality cannot be expressed by one perspective. According to the Jains, Anekantavad is the epistemological maxim of India. What is Anekantavad? That reality has multiple dimensions, and just by one philosophical system it cannot be expressed. What is? There is one truth, but scholars speak the same truth in their own languages, which may be different. Therefore, today I will divide my talk into two sections: the European Vivekananda, that is when Swami Vivekananda visited the West, first during 1893 to 1897, and second from 1899 to 1902. Now, to do justice with your topic, Swami Vivekananda and Young India. What is Young India from Swami Vivekananda? As you all know, or if you do not know, then you should make a note. He died in 1902. Exact date is 4th July 1902. Therefore, his Young India is India which he experienced between 12th January 1863 to 4th July 1902. What does it mean? What is the date today? This is 11th January 2020. Then how young is this Young India? How young is this Young India? It is not only your generation. In case you wanted to understand Swami Vivekananda in his own terms, you should keep in mind he is referring to India. And India is still young in the language of Swami Vivekananda. How young? 118 years old. Therefore, in case you wanted to understand Young India of Swami Vivekananda, then you have to read the cultural history of India from 1902 to 2020 and see to what extent Swami Vivekananda is followed today in India. His following in Bengal is not very large. In the place of his birth, in the place of his birth, Bengal, there are more followers of his guru, Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans, than Swami Vivekananda. Second, there is another influence on Bengal of Rabindranath Tagore. Therefore, to understand Swami Vivekananda in Indian context, you will have to compare and contrast many people. Now, what is the difference between Swami Vivekananda and Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans? Ramakrishna Paramhans represents the whole of Indic tradition, and Swami Vivekananda represents one section of Indic tradition and the whole of European modernity. He is a very original thinker of European modernity. He is not less but more important than Immanuel Kant. He is not less but more important than Max Muller. And I do not agree with you that for him Max Muller was important because he edited the sacred books of the East, or he is regarded as one of the founding fathers of Orientalism or Indology in India. You may say why, and I will give the 5 reasons. Number 1, he was already born in the middle class family of Calcutta. Second, he attended the school founded by Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Then he attended Presidency College, Calcutta, where he was part of the student union which was founded by the Brahma Samajis. And he was in the direct contact of Brahma Bandhav Upadhyay of Sadharan Brahma Samaj and Kesav Chandra Sen, another sect leader of the Brahma Samaj. The question is, what is different between Swami Vivekananda and Brahma Samaj? The difference is that both Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who founded Brahma Samaj, and Swami Vivekananda, they agree about Vedanta. For both Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Kesav Chandra Sen, Devendranath Tagore, as well as Swami Vivekananda, Vedanta is more important than Vedas. Therefore, there is no lecture of Swami Vivekananda where he speaks about the Vedas. But he also do not speak about the Lokachar, Lok Dharma. But Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa speaks about the Shastras, which include the Vedas, as well as Lokachar or Lokas, which include Tantra. Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa was tutored by a Bhairavi Brahmani, who was a tantric, a lady teacher who was a tantric, and then a Swamiji of Sringeri Mutt. Therefore, Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans was born in a village, and as a villager, he was taught Lokachar of Bengali Hinduism. Although he was never schooled, he was illiterate. He was just taught how to worship Mata Kali. Therefore, the thought of Swami Ramakrishna Paramhans is more feminine than masculine. Whereas the thought of Swami Vivekananda is more masculine than feminine. Why I am raising this question? Because unlike Europeans, Indians do not believe that you are a man and I am a man. Who are you? You are a jiva. You are a living being. Who am I? I am also a living being. And within you, there is a feminine aspect which is muted. And in me also, there is a feminine aspect which is muted. In the same way, in Mamata Banerjee, there is a masculine aspect which is awakened. Therefore, you see the face, the body of Mamata Banerjee, there are more masculine traits than feminine. What is this called? The role of 7 chakras in the human body. And as you know, the first book Swami Vivekananda wrote in 1896 was called Karma Yoga. Then his second book was called, what was called? One was Karma Yoga, then second was called Raj Yoga, 1896. Then the third book was called Vedanta Darshan. The fourth book is Lectures from Colombo to Almora, 1987. Then he wrote another book in 1901, My Master, and his last book was Gyan Yoga, 1902. Therefore, there is both implicit and explicit reference to Yoga of Patanjali and Kriya Yoga of Lahiri Mahasaya in the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. And in Kriya Yoga in particular, but also in Patanjali Yoga Sutra, there is a concept of Kundalini Jagaran, awakening the serpent fire in the human body. When the Kundalini Jagaran happens, the beautiful white Parvati becomes Kali. And who is most masculine in Indian culture, Indian tradition? Kali. And who is most delicate, most beautiful woman in India? Mohini. Who is Mohini? Mohini is an avatar of Lord Vishnu. Now, I know most of you must be surprised what I am trying to say. I am trying to say that what genetics engineering proved for you, that a young boy can be easily transformed into a young girl, and a young girl can be easily transformed into a young boy through genetics engineering, is rooted in the thought of Swami Vivekananda. What is his most important philosophy? Swamiji said that Western science and technology is not wrong, it is incomplete. And it cannot be made complete unless and until it is synthesized with Vedanta philosophy of Hindus of India. And you are a student of sociology, others may be a student of social sciences. I would like to say, for the first time in the history of scholarship, that Swami Vivekananda is the first philosopher of world, not only of India. He is the first philosopher of world who combined the concept of Vedanta with the concept of capitalist enterprise. Therefore, he is forerunner of both Werner Jombart, who wrote Jews and Capitalism in 1911, and Max Weber, who wrote Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism in, there are many dates, One date says that as an introduction, he wrote in 1904 and 5. But then there is another date that the book Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism was not written for publication. Max Weber had written in his diary that this is not meant to be published. But he died in 1920. Exact date is 14th June 1920. And then his followers, followers are usually blind. It is not that there are blind followers only in India. There are blind followers in America. You see what the followers of Trump has done. There are blind followers in Germany. They published something which Max Weber had said it should not be published. Therefore, no student of sociology should read Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism because it is plagiarism. He just hijacked the ideas of Swami Vivekananda and wrote his name on the notes which was published as original book. This is the claim which is being made for the first time in history, and all of you are witness to this claim. This is foundation of my work which is being published in series. The first book has come this year during the corona time. To be precise, it was published in March, late March 2020. The name of the book is Bhartiya Sanskriti or Bhartiya Cinema. In this book, I have tried to articulate Indian concept of modernity and Indian concept of tradition and contrasted it with the European concept of tradition and European concept of modernity, and also said that among many other things, cinema is one of the medium through which it can be articulated. But there are other means as well. Now, his full book was called Economy and Society, but unfortunately, this was not published either in German or in English language until 1978. Therefore, after reading this book, Economy and Society, published in 1978, edited by Roth, and also by reading Jews and Capitalism by Werner Sombart, 1911, you can say that Swami Vivekananda was a person who visualized the coming future. In what course the human evolution is going through. He was a critic of, Darwinism, but he was not a critic of evolution. Because as a student, he read in the school of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar that there are 10 avatars of Lord Vishnu, 9 has already come, and there is a 10th. And there is a letter which Swami Vivekananda wrote to his younger brother, that is Guru Bhai, Swami Akhandanand, that unlike Darwin, the Vaishnavite theory of evolution is a much more scientific thing. I am an old person now because I am ill. He died very young, Therefore, it is your duty to elaborate the Vaishnavite concept of evolution as a better alternative of Darwinian evolution. My third point is that Swami Vivekananda said that instead of giving reservations to Dalits or tribals of India, they should be taught Sanskrit. This was a very controversial statement when it was written. It is still very controversial. But people do not try to understand the spirit behind Vivekananda's this statement. He was saying more or less the same thing which Baba Sahab Ambedkar said later on. He said that there should be temple entry of Dalits, tribals, and women, not only as a devotee but also as a priest. Why? He quoted Manusmriti in one of the letters which he wrote to Brahmanand, who succeeded Swami Vivekananda as the chief of Ramakrishna Mission. What he said? He said that from the womb of the mother, everybody is born as Shudra, and Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaisyas are made in Gurukul. Therefore, unless and until Sanskrit is taught to the downtrodden, the deprived sections of Indian society, they cannot become the equal partner in the reformation or development of the Indic civilization. In other words, what he was trying to say is that after the destruction of Nalanda University by Bakhtiyar Khilji, the commander of Qutbuddin Aibak, and his son-in-law Iltutmish, or father of Razia Sultan, there is no global university in India. And in case India has to grow as a prosperous, healthy, educated civilization or nation state, they should have not only their own university or Gurukul or Vishwavidyalaya, but it should be taught through Indic languages, Sanskrit in particular. Therefore, although he spoke in English, but he did not consider English fit to be the medium of instruction in India. Why? Because Vivekananda knew when he visited Europe and America that the elites in even England are not taught English. What they are taught? They are taught Latin and Greek. And you know, until 1956, Shakespeare was not taught to the elites of England. Shakespeare is for whom? For those who live in English colonies. Why? Because Shakespeare is not an original writer like Kalidas. Then who is Shakespeare? He is like your Vedavyas. My students ask me, what you are telling, sir? Who is greater, Kalidas or Vedavyas? I ask, it depends on your perspective. Who is Vedavyas? He is the editor of Puranas. He is editor of Vedas. He is editor of Upanishads. He is not writer. He is compiler and editor, whereas Kalidas is author. Valmiki is author. Are you getting the difference? What Shakespeare did, he did the same thing for English people, what Vedavyas did for Indic civilization. He collected, compiled, and he edited different stories found in Europe. Are you getting my point? He is editor, compiler, not author of the epics or the plays which is taught in India as written by Shakespeare. He is only a compiler. He is only an editor, and he should be treated as such. Therefore, what is taught? The classics of Latin and Greek is taught to the European elites. In the same way, Swami Vivekananda said, in case you are giving only reservation to Dalits, to the women, to the tribals, you will make only middle class. You will make only inferior elite. You cannot make superior elite. This was something which Baba Sahib Ambedkar also understood when he started the movement for temple entry, when he demanded that the priest should be made from the downtrodden communities as well. Sanskrit should be taught to them as well. And it should be taught not only in Sarkari schools, the government schools, but also in the schools which is run by the Shankaracharyas. The Hindu society was not ready to accept it. Therefore, he converted to Buddhism in 1956. But here also, he twisted the whole grammar of Buddhism. Before Baba Sahib Ambedkar, Buddhism was divided into three parts. One was called Hinayan. This is a derogatory term for Asthavirvad. No Hinayani will call himself a Hinayani. They are Asthavirvadis. But why this derogatory term? Hinayan means lesser will. And then there is Mahayan. In other words, there were three types of Buddhism before Baba Sahib Ambedkar embraced Buddhism: Mahayan, Asthavirvad, and Vajrayan or Kalchakrayan. What he did, Baba Sahib Ambedkar, he did the same thing which Swami Vivekananda did for Hinduism. What Baba Sahib Ambedkar did, he synthesized Mahayan, Asthavirvad, and Kalchakrayan into one unified Buddhist philosophy of life for modern people. In the same way, Swami Vivekananda synthesized the 6 schools of philosophy found in India. And what are these? Purva Mimamsa, Uttar Mimamsa, Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, and Vaisheshik. He synthesized all these six schools of Indian philosophy and he called it Vedanta. Whereas, Western scholars of Vedanta limit it only to Uttar Mimamsa. The concept of Swami Vivekananda's Vedanta is much broader than is written in the English books written by Europeans, Americans, or Indians. You got my point? Swami Vivekananda's concept of Vedanta is a synthesis of all the 6 schools of Indian philosophy for a Hindu way of life articulated by Radhakrishnan. In case I have to conclude, I will say today in 2020, Swami Vivekananda is the prophet of Hindu right. As right is understood in America, as right is understood in Europe, Swami Vivekananda today should be considered as the prophet of Hindu right. In between, the Marxists had distorted his concept and they claimed that he supported Marxism, communism and socialism. It is a very bad reading of Swami Vivekananda. He never supported communism or socialism in CPM's terminology. He supported socialism in the sense of Indian joint family or Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Therefore, in case we have to compare and contrast, we will say you have John Rawls' theory of justice, we have Swami Vivekananda. You have Max Weber, we have Swami Vivekananda. Secondly, Mahatma Gandhi represents the Hindu left. You have Karl Marx, we have Mahatma Gandhi. Now, many people will disagree, but they do not understand what is the Gandhian philosophy's crux, Sarvodaya. Is Sarvodaya different from the third stage of socialism discussed in the Communist Manifesto of Karl Marx? And my answer is no. Swami Vivekananda represents the Hindu left. Sorry, Swami Vivekananda represents the Hindu right, Mahatma Gandhi represents the Hindu left, and Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar represents the middle path. There are certain aspects of the Hindu right which is there in Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar. For example, he was also a bitter critic of communism, but Baba Sahib also took certain things from Gandhi. And what he took from Gandhi was the concept of aparigraha. When he converted to Buddhism, his idea was to construct a moral community in the same way in which Ismail Durkheim was trying to, articulate a moral community for the modern world or postmodern world. Thank you.
Oh, so thank you so much, sir. Sir, beauty of your sociological insight is that you always use comparative method in order to decode the social reality, in order to understand any philosopher. So now I would like to invite questions. So guys, if you have any question, because we are also running out of time.
In case they are unable to ask question, because sometimes
Yes.
when you listen a lecture carefully,
Hmm.
you are not clear what to ask and what not to ask. Therefore, you can share my email.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Not the email, my personal email, but my official JNU email, yahoo.com. Or you
Okay,
can
sir.
also share my phone number. They can
Okay.
ask WhatsApp question, or they can ask, email questions. I will be
Okay.
delighted to answer. But in case there are some questions right away here, I will be delighted to engage with them. I will not answer them because my
Okay.
style is that only you can give answer to your question, but I can help you find your answer by supplying a good theory, a good method, and a good technique. I
Uh,
can only empower you, but I cannot answer your question. Your
yeah.
question is your question, and this is something which I have learned from Swami Vivekananda.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, there is one question in my inbox. Somebody is asking, is there any conflict between Vedanta philosophy and Buddhist philosophy?
Yeah, there is conflict.
Yes, and I also found like, sir, I didn't, understand like why Swami Vivekananda has problem with Buddhism.
Yeah, this is a question which many people ask from me when I claim I am a practicing Buddhist, but
Yes.
I am also a great admirer of Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa. Actually, I think I should not be misunderstood. When he was born, 1863, when he died, 1902, for how long he was alive?
39-year-old.
39-year-old. Is the cosmos such a simple thing that a 39-year-old young man will be able to decipher it in one life? The Buddha took many lives to present his synthesis. Lord Krishna is considered to have taken 8 lives. In case you know Vaishnavite history, are you getting the point?
Yes.
Hindus believe, and Baba Sahib Ambedkar has explicitly written, you can find it in D.C. Ahir's edited book, Selected Lectures of Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Baba Sahib Ambedkar said there is 2 concepts of Hindu. There is one concept of Hindu Dharma, and there is another concept of Hindu culture. He was asked a question, why you converted to Buddhism? And this will be my answer to your question. What is the difference between Vedanta of Swami Vivekananda and Buddhism of Baba Sahib Ambedkar? Actually, as I said, Swamiji had got a book from Colombo to Almora. And it was written in 1897. Now, where is Colombo? In Sri Lanka. What is the identity of Sri Lanka? It is a Buddhist country. Which type of Buddhist? Asthavirvadis. Are you getting the point? He has spent more time in Sri Lanka than in Japan. Are you getting the point?
Yes,
He was familiar with only one type of Buddhism which was practiced in Sri Lanka and which is practiced in Burma or Thailand. What are these? These are Hinayani or Asthavirvadi Buddhism. This type of Buddhism is for the common masses. Are you getting the point? And
Yes.
what was the mission of Swami Vivekananda? He was interested in producing Raj Yogi like Narendra Modi or Yogi Adityanath. Are you getting the point?
Yes.
And Baba Sahib Ambedkar was more interested in producing Jawaharlal Nehru and Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Got or not got? I have given a very clever answer
Yes,
because
sir.
I wanted to be politically correct.
And neutral.
I am not a neutral person.
Okay.
I think there is nobody in the world who is a neutral person. If I am a Buddhist, I am a Buddhist. I am not a Vaishnavite. I am not a Vedanti. What is the difference between Buddhism and Vedanta? Now I am giving the politically incorrect answer. And for this, many people may criticize me. And this is also in written. I have written it in German. What is the difference between Vedanta and Buddhism? The same difference which is between Vedas and Vedanta. What is Vedanta? The end. What is Vedas? The beginning. Can you discuss the end without discussing the beginning? The Buddha begins, the first sentence of the Buddha, the Tathagata, the Gautam, the Buddha is, I am not giving a new religion. I am not giving a new religion. What I am doing? I am giving a new interpretation in your language for you. What he did, he translated the Indic tradition from Sanskrit to Pali. And what is European modernity? European modernity consists of 5 stages: Renaissance, Reformation, Industrial Revolution, political revolutions, and development of science and culture. I would like to say, and for this all of you will criticize me, that from Gautam the Buddha, Indian modernity began. When Europe became modern in 16th century AD, when India became modern before 600 BC, before 600 years of the birth of Jesus Christ. Are you getting the point? Indian modernity did not begin with Swami Vivekananda or Raja Ram Mohan Roy or establishment of Asiatic society or with the coming of the Europeans. Indian modernity began long back with the advent of Gautam the Buddha. Who is Gautam the Buddha? He is a person who did something. What he did? When he was born as a prince of Kapilavastu, at present in Nepal, but then in Bharatvarsha, there was a thesis which was propounded by Lord Krishna. What was it called? It was called Bhagavat Dharma. Sri Krishna did not write Bhagavad Gita. There is no such book in India called Bhagavad Gita. It is the British who discovered this book for you. They said they have Bible, Muslims have Quran, you must have Gita. But Gita was name of our daughters, sisters and wives and mothers. Gita was not name of any book written or found in India. Rather, it was a small section of the Mahabharata. There is a fat book called the Mahabharata, edited by Vedavyasa. Then there is a Shanti Parva. And then within Shanti Parva, there is a dialogue between Bhishma and, Arjuna. And within that dialogue, there is a dialogue between, Dhritarashtra and Sanjay. And within the dialogue of Dhritarashtra and Sanjay, there is a narration of the, how the battle of Mahabharata is going to begin. It is a commentary before the cricket match has started. And within that commentary, which Sanjay gives to Dhritarashtra, there is a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Now, how can you read, Bhagavad Gita or Gita without the context of Mahabharata? Either you read the full book or you do not read it at all. What was Vedanta before Swami Vivekananda? For example, when Adi Shankaracharya was writing and teaching, there is a dispute about the date. The Western scholars say, Adi Shankaracharya was born in 8th century AD. But Kanchi Kamakoti Peeth of Shankaracharya says that he is before the Buddha. But Adi Shankaracharya says, in case somebody wanted to understand Vedanta, he should read 3 books. What is the first book? Brahma Sutra. Then he should read the 9 major Upanishads, but he excludes the fattest one, the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and calls them the most important Upanishad. How do you claim that the most important, the most exhaustive, the most elaborate Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is not important? But that is something which I cannot answer. Only Adi Shankaracharya's answer. And to get answer from him, you will have to die, because in body you cannot talk to him. Therefore, I will give my answer, not Shankaracharya's answer. He was just trying to say that there is a method of reading Bhagavad Gita in 8th century AD. And what is that? The first step is that you read Brahma Sutra. The second step is that you read 9 Upanishads. And the third step is that you read Bhagavad Gita. Are you getting the point? But when Swami Vivekananda is writing, how he is reading the Gita? He says that to live in this world, you have to accept Western science and technology. Now, what was science and technology before Vivekananda ji died? Albert Einstein was yet to arrive. Sigmund Freud was yet to arrive. Heisenberg was yet to arrive. Therefore, you read Isaac Newton instead of Brahma Sutra. You read Charles Darwin instead of 9 Upanishads. And you read Bhagavad Gita instead of Calvin's book, which is a commentary on the Bible. Therefore, Swami Vivekananda was a Hindu missionary like John Calvin was a missionary of Protestant church in France or Europe. You got my point?
Yes,
Whereas Buddhism tries to give a complete system of life, society, and cosmos, like the Vedas. Are you getting the point?
Yes, sir. Yes.
As modernity became in Europe with the emergence of modern languages, without German, without French, without English, without Dutch, without Spanish, without Italian, without Portuguese, you cannot understand modernity in Europe. Because earlier their God understood only Latin and Greek. Their God is very selective. He doesn't understand modern languages, which was spoken by the rustic people, unlettered people. But our God is different. Our goddesses are different. They don't understand any language you speak. There should be pure intention. But there is one condition in India also. Our gods have only musical ears. Therefore, unless and until you do prarthana or bhajan, in prose, you cannot approach any god. To approach goddess Kali, either you have to weep or you have to sing or laugh.
Yes, sir. Because even the concept of God is also contested. Suppose the conception of God is for Gandhi is different. Concept of God for Ramakrishna Paramahansa is also different. The
I am
concept of
watching
God
on
for
your
Buddhism,
screen. There are only 3 other people.
9, sir. There is 9, and we have
No, there are only 3 others, and 2 of us. I was just joking. You can continue.
yes, sir.
We believe in the concept of laughing Buddha.
Laughing.
Therefore,
So I just want to know from you, like, how can you understand the concept of God? Because there is a contestation, like how we can differentiate conception of God of Swami Vivekananda and Gandhi, because both of them say God is truth, right?
but do you know what is the meaning of truth in Gandhi or Vivekananda?
Gandhi for truth
No,
is
do
love.
not try to answer because all answers will be wrong. I'm giving you the right answer because I have spent more than 50 years in understanding Gandhi, Vivekananda, and Ambedkar. In Indic tradition, and they are genuinely Indian, 3 of them, Swami Vivekananda, Gandhi, and Ambedkar. They are Tridev of India. Without any of them, you cannot understand the full India. To understand complete Indic tradition, you have to read Swami Vivekananda, you have to read Gandhi, you have to read Ambedkar. They are like Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh of contemporary India. But in case you are referring to medieval India, who you should read? 5 people. You have to read a person called Kabir, who is illegitimate child. Nobody knows who is the father and mother of Kabir. Orphan. He is orphan, He is orphan. Then you have to read a person called Surdas, who is blind, visually challenged. Then you have to read a person called Tulsidas. He is also orphan. You know, the
Mhm.
mother died, the father died, the mother died, the father died, then the maid servant died. You know, then
Mhm.
the Narhari Baba also died.
Mhm.
Therefore, you have a strange proponents of medieval India. One
Mhm.
is Kabir, who is illegitimate child. Then there is
Mhm.
a blind person called Surdas. Then you have somebody called Tulsi Das, who is
Mhm.
orphan. Then
Mhm.
you have a divorcee, Mirabai.
Mhm.
And then you have, a very downtrodden person, Sant Raidas or
Ravidas.
Ravidas.
Mhm.
Now, those who talk that in India there is Manuvad,
Mhm.
do they have any knowledge of Indian history? Do
Mhm.
they know that there is 16 Smritis, and Manu
Mhm.
Smriti is the first Smriti who was written lakhs and lakhs years ago. And
Mhm.
Indian constitution, which was edited and introduced by Baba Saheb Ambedkar, because there
Mhm.
was a constituent assembly. He was the
Mhm.
secretary, and Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the president of constituent assembly.
Mhm.
Which Smriti is referred to in the Indian constitution in Hindu law? It is not
Mhm.
Manu Smriti, it is called Yagyavalkya Smriti.
Mhm.
It is Yagyavalkya Smriti which talks of Mitakshara and Dayabhag. Truth is a reality, existing reality plus possibilities for both Vivekanand, Gandhi, and Baba Saheb Ambedkar. What is truth?
Mhm.
Existing reality plus all existing possibilities. This is the truth. You are what? You are one part of God. You are Pind. And who is God? Brahmand. Therefore, it is not wrong with Gandhi says or Vivekananda says that truth is God. What is truth? God is truth. Who is God? God is human being. God is animal. God is nature. God is man-made machine or technology, and God is divinity. All five combined together, they are cosmos, Brahmand, and that is
Mhm.
truth. Existing reality plus possibilities.
Mhm.
You are possible God.
Mhm.
At the moment, you appear to be human.
Mhm.
Sometimes you may appear like a machine. There
Mhm.
are many people who are as good as machines. They have no heart, they have no soul. They are just efficient economists. They are just efficient bureaucrats. The
Mhm.
bureaucratic elite or rational legal elite of Max Weber is as good as machine, robot.
Mhm.
Are
Mhm.
you getting the point?
Mhm.
Truth is that you are divine,
Mhm.
but you are unable to realize that you are divine.
Mhm.
Therefore, Gandhi has two formula for you, which he borrowed from Swami Vivekananda. One is Atmanubhuti. Second is Brahmanubhuti. What is the English translation? Experience of your
Self-realization.
real self and
Mhm.
experience of the divine self. Divine
Mhm.
self is God.
Mhm.
I think we should stop here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
Uh, okay, okay. So you may leave, sir. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
we'll provide the video as well
Okay.
and
Thank you.
share